My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo Story. Water shortage in India's Silicon Valley, Bangalore, has prompted some tech professionals to temporarily return to their hometowns due to the unsustainable living conditions there because of water shortage. You can see on your screen people lining up to collect water. There's a big water scarcity problem in Bangalore at the moment. The Bengaluru Water Supply Board is taking measures such as directing builders to use environment-friendly water for construction and prohibiting non-essential use of potable water, with violators facing fines. But what does this crisis mean for Bengaluru, and how are the people dealing with this situation? We are joined from Bengaluru by we're joined by Sandeep Aniruddha. He's the founder of Citizens Agenda in Bengaluru. He joins us. Welcome to the show, Sandeep. Raghu Rajagopal, a civic activist, also joins us from Bengaluru. Welcome to the show, Raghuji. If I may start with you, Sandeep, how is the situation there? Is this such a big crisis that, according to reports, people are moving away from Bengaluru and trying to go back to their hometowns, and some are seeking work from home options? What is the situation like there in Bangalore as of now?
Zafar, thanks for having me on the show. Yes, Zafar, the situation is dire. In fact, we have seen it coming for the last 5-6 months. In our ward committee meetings, 90% of the time is spent on water issues because people are not getting water supply. The BWSSB, which is the water agency for the city, except for the central business district where the water supply is slightly better, most outlying areas, water supply is reduced to once in 2 weeks, once in a month. How can you survive on water supply coming once in 2 weeks or once in a month? Some places don't receive water for a year. So the infrastructure is crumbled. At the same time, people had shifted to use of borewells, that is groundwater. Those have dried up because of overexploitation and lack of management. There was no enforcement of laws. And then people shifted to water tankers. Till about a couple of months back, water tankers were able to cater to the demand. But things have got so bad now that water tankers don't have sources for water. And so what's happened is there's a crisis situation where the last the last option left to people are not able to supply water, which is what brought this issue into the limelight, because even water tankers are taking 4 to 5 days, maybe a week booking to deliver. They've hiked their prices by 2-3 times. So there are places where people have to spend their entire month's salary on water. I mean, that's not sustainable. So it obviously ordinary people and even well-to-do people, many apartment communities have started rationing water. They're allowing taps to be open for 2 hours, 3 hours. So you can imagine the plight of the poorer. The poorer are having to trek long distances, carry one bot, to get a pot of water. They're paying money by the pot and buying water just to have a bath. So yes, everything's crumbled, and I think.
And scary situation. The sketch that you have put out is extremely scary. But Raghu, if I may come to you, have you ever seen such a crisis in Bengaluru? And what is the reason for this crisis? It must not have happened suddenly. There must have been such sort of a problem over the years which was not given an attention, and now suddenly it is blown out of proportion.
Yes, there are two things to attribute for this. One is the climate change has come calling. We have not woken up to the climate change warnings. Number two is we have to look at one small bit of the history of Bangalore, and we should take a bow to Nara Prabhu Kempegauraji. He had built a lot of ponds in the city for water sustainability of the city needs. and each pond's waste wire was connected to the downstream pond, which finally connected to the lake. What used to happen is the channel which is connecting was completely a porous one where there is a lot of seepage of water, groundwater charging used to happen, and aquifers used to fill. And absolutely the entire path was not contaminated. In
Right.
1960, there was one of the stats that we had 262 lakes. Today we have 81 lakes. And look at Vrishabhavati was a river in Bengaluru. The ancient historian says there are two crops in Bengaluru during that time. That was that period. Now today when we say we have only 81 lakes, out of it probably I think more than 50% are dried up and balanced. The rest of them will not be in a potable situation where it is contaminated. A lot of fish kills have been reported. I think even Anirudh has reported a lot of fish kills happening in the lakes nowadays. Now, looking at what has already happened, we are at a situation where we are now stepping into the retrofitting into the city. It is an irreversible damage which has already happened to the city, where the spaces of the balance 262 lakes, we have built layouts, the concrete jungles, and stuff like that. And even the nalas which used to percolate water to the ground is now concretized. It is all a runoff water which is getting into the drain, which is contaminated and entering the lake, and the lake is also catching fire. So where do you get fresh water from? Now,
Right.
let us look at two, three stats very clearly. As the data from BWSSB, we get 1,450 million liters per day from Kaveri and 700 million liters from borewell. Okay, so 1450 MLD travels 8,000 plus kilometer in pipeline before getting booster pumped from 62 reservoirs and 57 pumping stations reaching up to the people. So we are
Right.
losing around 30% of the water during transmission. So
Right.
if
Right.
we control this 15%, even 15%, that's the international standard, we get 200 MLD of water. And number two is the 1475 MLD is the wastewater generated by the city,
Right.
which means 70% of the water is wastewater.
Right.
If
So all what you're trying to say that there's a lot of scope of management, stopping these losses of the water when from the supply source to the recipient. But Sandeep, how are people dealing with this? How are like for instance, how are you dealing with this situation? Your family, you would have also taken some measures like other people. How are they now that this is a crisis? There is no water. People are rationing water. What are the measures people have taken to survive in these conditions?
Zafar, before I do that, I'd like to chip in with a few more figures.
Yeah,
With all
yeah,
due respect to what Raghu was saying, see, the district of Bengaluru had almost 2,000 lakes. Those have reduced to about 400 odd lakes. The city limits had about 1,000 lakes. And those have reduced to the official list of about 210 lakes right now. So I'm
right,
just chipping to the figures. The other thing is water from coming from Kaveri, as Raghu rightly said, is 1,450 MLD. That's estimated. But I think only about 800 or something MLD is actually coming to the city.
yeah,
Water dependence on groundwater is more than 1,500 MLD. And if you so the actual deficit for the city is almost 2,000 MLD right now. These figures are
yeah,
not understood by people. So we only have about one third of the water the city actually needs. And why this happened is actually because of lack of planning, lack of
right,
enforcement of laws, lot of lawlessness. So I can expand on that later, so that I can answer your question to me, which is how are we coping? Right now, we are at the mercy of whatever is available. We are at the mercy of tankers, and we are cutting down at individual levels. A lot of us conscious people have been practicing a lot of water conservation methods. We have fixed aerators on our taps to reduce consumption by almost 60%, and we've done this about 4 5 years back. Because see, you must understand that the water shortage, which has become so pronounced right now, had started about 10 years back. We were actually feeling the crunch from 10 years. We were just shifting our dependence to others. See, BWSB doesn't give us running water in our taps. It is it is deficient already.
Right.
Its mandate is to
Right.
provide running water. If it stops
Right.
that and starts supplying once in a day or once in 2 days or once in a week, we are already, it is failing in its duty to provide water to us. And this has happened almost a decade ago. So we were using these tankers and groundwater as what you would call an IV drip. An
Uh-huh.
IV drip is something you give a patient when they are in ICU. It's not a
Right.
normalized practice, right? We should
Right.
have been able to go back. So that is where the state and the city government have failed terribly, because simply speaking, it's because they haven't. I'm not even talking of policies, laws, and measures that have to come as an outcome of this. There are laws, policies that have been in existence over the last 50, 60 years, which the government never implemented. For instance, the BWSSB issued a notice last week saying that from 15th of March, we will not allow borewell drilling without permission. It will
Right.
shock you to know that that is the law from 1999. From 1999, no borewell drilling is allowed without permission, which means almost 99% of all borewells that have been drilled, and thousands have been drilled in the last 2 decades in Bengaluru, are all illegal.
Illegal.
That's the kind of
Right.
apathy our government departments have had. And if I start listing where all we failed, we have a national water policy, 2012. We have a state water policy, 2022. Both are not implemented. Both talk about integrated management of water, which means maintain the ecosystem, improve it, reuse wastewater, ensure lakes are filled, groundwater is recharged, ensure local water security. Whereas what the government has actually done is the opposite. We get about 18 to 24 TMC of water from rainfall every year in Bengaluru. That is more than what we actually trying to get from Kaveri. We had it, and what we
Right.
did
Right.
as a policy, we started depending on water 100 kilometers
From
away, and we destroyed our local water security. So now we are running for about 20 TMC of water from Kaveri, where we have destroyed more than 20 TMC of water we had from rainfall by destroying the
Absolutely.
natural, I mean, artificial network of lakes, Rajakaluways,
Right.
and porosity of soil that existed. So
Yeah.
similarly, there's a 74th amendment which was passed in 1992. The real problem of Bengaluru is unplanned development. We have
Right.
developed beyond our means, which is we have developed beyond our natural resources. Why did this happen? Because we did
Right.
not have a planning. What was required for planning? We should have a master plan. Singapore has a
Right.
master plan for 50 years. Sydney has a master plan for
Yeah.
100 years. We have a master plan for
Right.
0 years. So this was bound to happen. It has become a concrete desert. We have destroyed about 95% of all our wetlands and lake systems. We have destroyed
Right.
97% of our green cover in the last 5 decades. This was all an outcome of unplanned growth, and we didn't plan for the capacity we already have. This is something we
Right.
cannot excuse our government because it's part of our constitution. It is a constitutional mandate. So
Right.
every CM of the last 30 years has failed us. Every government
Right.
has failed us. Then we have the
Right.
wetland rules of 2000. In wetland rules of 2000, Karnataka State Wetland Authority is supposed to identify, notify, and protect every wetland. 30% of Bengaluru's geography was wetlands. Today we have nothing left. We have about 2% left. Wetlands is
Right.
to ensure that the water is sequestered into the ground. Therefore, the groundwater would recharge. We don't have any of
Right.
that left. And all of it is
You
covered
know.
with concretization, and that's where the flooding happens. Then we have the
You know.
Groundwater Act of 1999. Okay, I'll just complete two more, and I'll tell you how we have been failed by the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
Groundwater Act of 1999. The Groundwater Authority is in charge of protecting groundwater, ensuring it is not misused. Nobody knew about its existence till about a month ago. So from 99 till now, most people didn't know it existed. That is how bad it is. And then we
Right.
have Environment Protection Act, Tree Protection Act, Deem Forest rules,
Yeah.
all of these.
You know.
And
You put
worse,
it so.
we have
You put it.
just
You put.
just two more because this is
Yeah.
relevant to the city. We have
Yeah.
BDA rules and we have BBMP bylaws. Both do not allow illegal layouts and illegal construction. Because see, this is where the problem is. You construct more than what is allowed, and you build more than what is allowed, then you create demand of what is actually allowed. So about almost 90% of buildings, I think 99% of buildings in Bengaluru are illegal. If we actually demolish all of them, then we'll come to the actual capacity of the city. So
Right.
this kind of lawlessness, corruption, inefficiency of government is what has brought us to this problem. Most people are not discussing it. It is actually an
Right.
outcome of misgovernance, misgovernment. Government has been
Right.
missing.
You have put it out so elaborately with so much details. I hope those people who have the power to make the change on the ground are listening to this, are hearing to this, and seeing what exactly has happened over the years that has led to this crisis that the people of Bangalore are facing currently. Raghuji, the point is that over the years there has been a systematic failure, mismanagement, no planning at all. It's been illegal constructions, no harvesting of the rainwater, just dependence on one river. But what is it that the government is doing right now? Do you think it is sufficient? As I was reading reports that there is also extortionists who are tankers, they're charging more money, then people don't know what to do. Do you think that for a short term, the government is dealing with this situation in a right manner, or much more need to be done?
Well, it's actually a knee-jerk reaction, whatever is happening now. So you allowed the error to creep into the system, and now you're trying to do a damage control, and that also is not in the right directions. Because what happens is probably if you have heard even yesterday, some of the experts who are speaking, government is not involving the citizens' participation in solving this crisis. Probably, if you would have called the industrialist, if you would have called the ecologist, the experts, and things like that, you would have got a way forward. So you are not interested in listening to the right people. You have actually built a call center which is supposed to be the which supposed to help the people and the city to negotiate with this crisis. But that's not the right way to do it. Right? You get the tankers, you confiscate them, and in fact fix a price. Is that all there to solve the problem? That means it's only a damage control. But what else
Yeah.
can be done? What else could have been done is probably, as Anirudh said, you saw it coming in last October. October, the indications of the levels of the KRS dam said, even if you have to take head on with the Kaveri tribunal, you please store water for your own needs of the city, which was not done. And when you knew there is a water crisis coming for drinking as well as agriculture, probably what max would have happened, a contempt of court for the state. But you would have stood your ground saying that, boss, I stood for the city, I stood for the state. And what would have happened? Finally, there would have been a contempt of court and Kaveri tribunal taking them. Probably people would have revolted. And we had not taken those right steps. We had allowed things to happen. Today we are doing the troubleshooting at this point of time. And we had actually told 1 month ago to BWSSB, please don't depute your officials for election duty. There is a crisis in the city. They are the only people who at least can give little solace to the people. I don't think so. It's been heard. We have been telling them from quite some time that there are a lot of other resources which they can use for the election duty. Now, also the code of conduct is announced. We are at the brink of the crisis. The guys who can actually at least give a little shoulder to this problem will be away in election duty somewhere else, and we'll be at the mercy of the development, we'll be at the mercy of the linemen. So I really don't know
That's
at
a
this point in time how can it be negotiated across.
that's a very important point. But Sandeep, quickly before we wrap up, do you think that uh, people cutting across political lines do understand that this is a crisis that impacts everybody in the city, or politics is going on over this issue? Before you answer, we have a soundbite of a BJP MP. Let's play that.
Unfortunately, the state government had all information available with them. Experts had warned the government. Geologists, meteorologists, officials in the government had all indicated to the government that the monsoons will be failed. There is a severe water crisis that Bengaluru is staring at. Despite these warnings, the government did not take any action preemptively. Today, the drinking water crisis in the city has become severe. Literally hundreds of apartments complexes, hundreds of areas do not even have a single drop of drinking water available.
Right, you heard it, Sandeep. What do you have to say? Doesn't it merit a collective approach, not just from people cutting across political lines, but common people, citizens of that city, to come together and to fight this problem. If this is going to escalate, then it's not only those who are working in Bangalore who go back to their hometown, but perhaps locals may also have to migrate to other places.
True, Zafar. See, the problem is that our politicians have not concerned themselves with this problem for decades. They have not enforced governance. We've had
Yeah,
poor governance for 7 to 8 decades. So
right.
overnight, expecting them to turn a new leaf and talk about enforcing laws, doing the right thing, I think it is a far-fetched expectation. Now, unfortunately, it is come like it's actually forcing their hand. So they're trying to do something, but they obviously, as Raghu also said, they lack the understanding and they don't talk to the right specialists. Typically, politicians are surrounded by deal makers and brokers who guise themselves as consultants, but normally to try to make money off the system, kickbacks, and all that. They're not looking at sustainable, holistic solutions. Uh, if you even look at the initial knee-jerk reaction they've had, what have they announced? They only announced that the procurement rate for tankers will be fixed, which is for free supply to slum areas and poor people. But regular citizens are having to buy it at extra. I mean, the figures you put on the screen are not the actual prices now. It's almost double that. It's
It's
2,000,
more than that.
3,000 already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's more than
that's
that.
what they're
Because
paying. I know what my community is paying.
these are the figures that we have collected from reports, from news reports. We don't
Yeah,
know. I live
on
in
the ground is
Kashmir,
much higher.
Sandeep, I live in
And I
Kashmir.
know,
There is no problem of water shortage ever in Kashmir, but we do see a bit of a drop in the water supplies in summers, but that
hmm,
is not to the extent that what you are facing.
no, as the Supreme Court said last January, it sent a missive to all the state secretaries saying, don't follow the Bangalore model of development. It is a template for urban ruin. The Supreme Court has noticed this last year in January when they were chastising Chandigarh for trying to become like Bengaluru. That is how
Right.
bad Bangalore is. It's an extremely bad example. But see, what the government should do now is it should actually recognize that we have a serious humanitarian crisis on our hands. They have to take some extreme steps. See, Chennai is used to having water crisis. Every time they have a water crisis, first thing they do is they ban construction projects because
Right.
construction work consumes a lot of water. Second thing we need to do is now in the age of technology, and Bengaluru is largely an IT industry hub, and during COVID, they had declared work from home. It worked very well. People went back to their hometowns. They can work from their home. It doesn't cause any disruption in their work. I think the government should make it strict now and say all industries that can actually employ people work from home should be allowed to do so. So people can work from hometown. That will bring down almost 50% of the pressure on Bengaluru's water demand. Then this is an opportunity where they should actually relook at all the policy and laws that I was talking of. They should pull up their
Yeah.
socks, implement it. We don't have a metropolitan planning committee. That is, we don't have a planning authority for the city. 3 decades they have violated the constitution. Now is when they need a kick in their bottoms, and the government should be told no more unplanned growth. The Supreme Court
Right.
itself has said we are suffering from unplanned growth. It's about time you stop violating the constitution, install a planning authority, have a proper master plan for the next 50 years, and allow no unplanned growth. In fact, many of the projects that are being executed now, including state projects and private projects, are based on an outdated, faulty RMP, revised master plan, that was issued in 2000 or 2005 or something, 2007 maybe, which expired in 2015. So what the government should do now is freeze it and say no development will be allowed on that because it's outdated and it doesn't relate to what the city is. So these kinds, see, the problem with the politicians is they are very myopic. They're only thinking about the 5-year term. They're not thinking about the city's benefit or the city's
Right.
long-term necessities and development needs.
Requirements. Yeah.
Also, every city has a capacity. You can't exceed it. And what the government, the state government as a principle should do is, why are they allowing monstrous growth in one city and every other small town and city is suffering from lack of growth, which is forcing people from there to migrate here? They should have a
Yeah.
policy which
You
disincentivizes growth in Bengaluru and actively incentivizes growth so that development is spread throughout the state. All other towns and cities get incentive, give tax breaks, set up startup hubs, give them loans or whatever. Incentivize them to other places so that it gets spread out. People don't have to come to Bangalore, everybody. The city cannot take anymore. Let's recognize those facts. Instead of doing that, the government is still encouraging construction.
These are all valid points, and I'm sure that they must also be knowing why they do this. Nobody can really understand. But there's a crisis at hand. It needs a short-term solution and a long-term solution. They can maybe do some damage control at the moment, come up with a short-term solution, but they must understand over the years the governments have failed the people of Bengaluru. Water is the basic necessity. Without water, you can't live. If they have failed to provide water to the people, they must introspect. And it's still high time to put strong and solid measures in place so that people of Bengaluru, which has an international image, don't suffer more and its reputation does not get tarnished, which has already happened now, doesn't get tarnished even more. Thanks to our panelists for joining us, and thanks to all the audiences for watching the Mojo Story.
Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.